for more analysis on Kenya's presidential election, I'm joined by Professor David Monda. He is a political scientist from City University of New York and a native of Kenya. Professor, a very warm welcome to you to our Africa 54 show. What do you make of this delay, if anything, given the already very tense situation in Kenya?
Firstly, thank you for having me. I think it's a really challenging situation right now. The IEBC obviously has to to get this right. They have to make sure that there's a clear correlation between the Form 34A and Form 34B, and that correlates with the results which were being transmitted digitally and on the screens at the Bomas. It's very tense also because there seems to be some conflict between the results that the opposition's producing, the NASA coalition, and that the IEBC is producing. And of course, Jubilee Alliance is caught somewhere in between. So it would be really imperative that this situation gets sorted out as soon as possible, but ultimately that it gets done right.
Now, you know, you talk about that being a very tense situation, but the man on the spotlight today is the chairman of IEBC, Mr. Wafula Chebukati.
Yes.
How should he handle this announcement?
I think he should take his time, and I would also say that it's not only the chairman, but the whole commission. The integrity of the commission is in question. Part of the challenge we've had with this election is the commission has tended at certain points to produce conflicting information. For example, in relation to the issue of hacking. At one point, the chairman said that there was an attempt to hack the system, and later his deputy came ahead and contradicted him and said there was no hacking. And then a day later, one of the commissioners came out and said that there was no hacking, so there's no need to look for a hacker. So you can see that with these conflicting announcements from the commission, it really creates a high level of uncertainty. The second issue is in relation to the transmission of the tallying of what was actually produced in the field. There seems to be a mismatch between what was actually being transmitted on the screens and a direct follow-up. In other words, a synchronized direct follow-up of the Form 34As and Bs. The opposition NASA coalition saying that there's a gap in between those two processes, and they think there's some room for some monkey business in between.
Now, you know, the opposition coalition today has called on the Electoral Commission to give it access, quote, to its computer servers, saying it would accept the results of the vote based on the figures recorded there. Is this also constitutional?
I think that creates really major problems because if the opposition gets access to the servers, then the Jubilee coalition will also want to get access to the servers, and you can see the kind of constitutional and legal problems that would create. It really then creates a situation where the public, within the public domain, ultimately the Kenyan voter has real doubts about exactly who's telling the truth because you have a shouting match between the two. Ultimately, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is supposed to be independent. So we need to have a level of ethics and integrity and trust with the results that are being tabulated digitally and also in paper form with the paper trail.
Now, Professor, briefly, what is the biggest challenge for President Uhuru Kenyatta if he takes oath of office in terms of reuniting the divided Kenyans?
At this point, it will be for him to reach out to the opposition and show the nation clearly that he's a president for all. At this point, the way things look like, the NASA coalition seems like it will petition the results. And then we're going to have a court process going on because they have 7 days to petition the results from the declaration of the results. And then we'll have a court process within 14 days. The Supreme Court will have to come up with a decision. And then after that decision is declared, depending on what the court decides, we either have the whole process over again or things stay as they are.
What next in terms of the political future of Raila Odinga? 10 seconds.
10 seconds. I think this is his last shot. If he loses this chance, then the opposition will have to have a new leader and Kenya will have to move forward.
Professor, thank you very much for your insight.
You're welcome.
Now, Professor David Monda is a political scientist from the City University of New York.